Hey everybody, Tactic Angel here, back on the PlayStation 4, talking about some World of Warships Legends. And today we're talking about the July update. First, the big one. German cruisers. They're here, and the German destroyers are sorta kinda here. Once you log in, you will see that you have an extra ship in dock. It's the Tier 1, whatever, called the Dresden. You can play this ship and level it up just like anything else. You'll quickly figure out that you can't branch off once you get to Tier 2 and you see the Kolberg, and then you suddenly can't get to the V25. Well, you can't do that for now. All the German destroyers are in early access. More on that in a second. So you can play the German cruisers. So should you play the German cruisers? Well, it's hard to say. In my experience, these are boats that tend to be wildly different from each other from tier to tier. The early German ships lob shells at an incredibly high arc, just like the Atlanta. That makes it kind of hard to hit them. It kind of makes me hate the early German cruisers, if nothing else. But I absolutely love the Königsberg, and from then on, it's kind of hit and miss. The Nuremberg is okay, the York is pretty awful, and the Hipper is actually kind of fun. Probably the one unifying thing about these ships is that they are all mounted with torpedoes from Tier 3 on up. They all have pretty great torpedo arcs, but very short range, and they have some turtleback armor, which is supposed to protect you from citadels. For the most part, I wouldn't really count on too much, except for maybe the Hipper. Generally thinking, starting as close to the enemy as you are in Legends, you'd think that would be a pretty good advantage for the Germans, but really it isn't, just because their ships are as poorly armored as they are, at least the cruisers. Regarding the early access destroyers, how do you get them? Well, you may get them if you come across a German crate. These German crates contain several goodies or early access to German destroyers. Between Tier 3 and Tier 6, there's no dependence on having the ship before it, though your chances of getting a Tier 3 ship are supposedly higher than your chances of getting a Tier 6 ship, which makes sense. So basically, you could get the Tier 6 ship immediately, and if so, congratulations. But you're more likely to unlock the Tier 3 ship, and my guess is that you're more likely to unlock something that doesn't contain a boat at all. So someone has already done the math and figured that you can earn around 2,800 Deutschmarks over the course of the campaign, with which you could buy about 70 German crates from the store. That said, I have no idea what the drop rate on these German destroyers is. Moreover, the 2,800 Deutschmark number is based on you getting 20 free per day with these more Deutschmark missions, plus all of the Deutschmark missions that you would get in the campaign. Let me just say this. The chances that you actually do this and you aren't retired or somehow gainfully unemployed is pretty unrealistic. You'll have to earn around 25,000 experience per day and do more than 2 million damage per day every day for 6 weeks to get to that number. And that simply isn't going to happen for most of us. As for the campaign itself, while the first campaign had the Atlanta at the end of it, this one is much more focused on getting an array of randomly assorted stuff and an extra commander container, which may or may not contain a duplicate German commander, and Deutschmarks. In total, more than 2,000 of those Deutschmarks that I just mentioned come from the campaign itself, so this comprises to waterboarding you for an agonizing pace of 1 Deutschmark per 2,500 experience, or 200,000 damage, which is pretty silly, and I understand why some people on the internet are not super happy with this update. The campaign trials are basically back from last campaign with some modifications. One positive, Wargaming has realized that the ability to deal 150,000 damage is pretty hard for your average player, but they've also limited the ships that you can use by nation for some of those missions before that, which kind of suck. If you want to buy Admiralty backing, which again costs $10, you can increase the amount of Deutschmarks you earn by 1,425 and gain access to a whole bunch of other junk. But is it worth it? Hang on for that in just a second. Spawn points have been moved back for battleships in some maps and for the entire team in others. I will emphasize that it hasn't been moved back for all ships on all maps, and certainly in some situations you're still going to start out the game spotted as a battleship. Is it better? Sure. Is the problem solved? Yeah, probably not. Point captures have been changed. This will help you end games faster, but I don't really love this. I do want to see how it works out, but I imagine that it will just make those matches with 3 or 4 capture areas end in a capture more quickly. Personally, I think Wargaming should have considered an escalating point scale where maybe capture points were worth 2 points in the first 5 minutes, 4 points for the next 5 minutes, and then 6 points in the last 5 minutes. But we'll see how this works out. My first impressions are pretty negative. Being down 1 base and losing inside of 8 minutes in a match feels extremely not good. An escalating point scale would discourage players from YOLOing into a capture point and dying in the first 2 minutes of the game, and still allow for those higher point games that they're looking for, and a quicker resolution to those matches. Anyway, you can now check your stats in the service record for this program. Pretty neat. You can see how many games you've won, the obsessive number of games that Tactic Angel has played, and some other statistics. Now, I've never pretended to be the greatest player in World of Warships history. Far from it. I'm okay, maybe better than average in the console version, but man, is it surprising to find that I had a pretty respectable win rate. Take that man who shall not be named describing me as some usseless idiot? What does that mean? By the way, I scored more points than him and everyone else on the team in that game. And I managed to spell everything correctly in my scathing rebuttal. Moving on, my favorite update is fixing the collision prevention system, which now doesn't try to murder you if you turn it off. This is a huge win for those of us who have apparently played 100,000 games in the Bliskovisa obsessively in an attempt to get every ship in the game and not be completely broke. Also a win, Bruce Fraser has skills that are useful to British cruisers now, which is a big win considering he's a British cruiser commander. They buffed the Vanguard a bit. It is a bit better, and that said, I don't have Madden, so I'm still a bit mad until I get him. The thing that bothers me most about this update is the removal of daily bonuses. This irks me because I play just about every day, but I also see it probably as detrimental to the player base since it will not encourage people to be playing daily. Finally, if you have purchased the commander's containers from a ship, you will be getting 1 free commander container at some point in the future, I think over the next week or so, for every 5 that you've purchased. Basically what that means is if you've purchased 1 to 5, you'll get 1. If you've purchased 6 through 10, you'll get 2, 11 through 15, 3, etc. I think this is a pretty decent way of rewarding those people who've played through the early days of Legends and the loot box stuff. To go along with this change, we have legendary ranks for commanders. This is kind of a mixed bag because right now the only way that you're going to be able to level up your commanders is through personal commendations and other commendations. You get personal commendations through these commanders containers, and personal commendations are assigned to whoever you got the duplicate of. So that's fine. You can go in, and in this case I got a duplicate of Bull Halsey, so it gave me 1 personal commendation for Bull Halsey, and the first legendary rank is 1 of these personal commendations. Now the problem is that they start escalating pretty quickly in terms of the number of orders you need, and that means you just need to get a ridiculous number of duplicates just to level this guy all the way up right now. I hope they find a better system than this, because this is going to be painful if I need to get 20 Bull Halsey copies in order to get him to his max rank. There are some additional patch notes. I've left a link in the description. Overall, I'd give this update a C in terms of its overall pros and cons, because I really feel like some of the stuff is pretty good and some of the stuff is pretty not so good. That said, I'm happy to see the Germans in the game. You can count on me to be reviewing some of the German ships as they come out. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please go ahead and check out those patch notes in the link below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.